Hello, class, and welcome back to our lecture on the psychology of intelligence. Now, while Binet and Simon's work was groundbreaking, it's important to note that their tests focus primarily on convergent thinking, or the ability to find a single correct answer to a given problem. And this is in contrast to divergent thinking, which is much more creative and which involves generating many different ideas or solutions to a problem. Other researchers have proposed even more types of intelligence. L.L. Thurston, for example, proposed that there were 7 clusters of primary mental abilities, including things like word fluency, verbal comprehension, spatial ability, perceptual speed, numerical ability, inductive reasoning, and, of course, memory. However, even these dimensions tend to be at least somewhat correlated, showing again the importance of general intelligence, or the G factor. One advocate of the idea of multiple intelligence is the psychologist Robert Sternberg. Sternberg has proposed a triachic or 3-part theory of intelligence that proposes that people may display more or less analytical intelligence, creative intelligence, and practical intelligence. Sternberg argues that traditional intelligence tests assess analytic intelligence, the ability to answer problems with a single right answer, but that they do not assess creativity, the ability to adapt to new situations and create new ideas, or practicality, the ability to write good memos, or to effectively delegate responsibility. Research has shown that creativity is not highly correlated with analytical intelligence, and exceptionally creative scientists, artists, mathematicians, and engineers do not score higher on intelligence than do less creative peers. Furthermore, the brain areas that are associated with convergent thinking that is directed toward finding the correct answer to given problems, are different from those associated with divergent thinking, the ability to generate many different ideas for a solution to a single problem. On the other hand, being creative often takes some of the basic abilities measured by G, including the abilities to learn from experience, to remember information, and to think abstractly. This shows that intelligence is a complex and multifaceted construct, and researchers and psychologists have made great strides in understanding the different ideas of intelligence and how they relate to one another. Howard Gardner is an American psychologist and professor at Harvard University who is known for his work on multiple intelligences. And Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences suggests that people have a variety of cognitive abilities that can be categorized into different types of intelligence. And this theory has had a significant impact on education and has influenced how educators teach and assess student learning. Gardner first introduced his theory of multiple intelligence in his book Frames of Mind, The Theory of Multiple Intelligence, which was published way back in 1983. In his book, Gardner argued that traditional measures of intelligence, such as IQ tests, were limited in their ability to fully capture the range of human abilities. Instead, he proposed that there were at least 8 different types of intelligence, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. The 8 types of intelligence that Gardner proposed are, first off, linguistic intelligence, which is the ability to use language effectively, both verbally and in writing. Logical mathematical intelligence, which is the ability to think logically, analyze problems, and perform mathematical operations. Spatial intelligence, which is the ability to think in 3 dimensions and visualize spatial relationships. There's also musical intelligence, and this is the ability to understand and create music. There's bodily kinesthetic intelligence, and this is the ability to control one's body movements and perform physical tasks. There's interpersonal intelligence, and this is the ability to understand and interact effectively with others. There's intrapersonal intelligence, and this involves self-awareness and the ability to understand one's own emotions, motivations, and goals. And finally, naturalistic intelligence, and this involves the ability to recognize and understand patterns in the natural world. Now, according to Gardner, each of these types of intelligence is independent of the others and can be developed and nurtured in different ways. For example, someone with strong linguistic intelligence might excel in writing or public speaking, while someone with strong spatial intelligence might excel in architecture or engineering. Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence has been both praised and criticized, and some educators have embraced the idea and have used it to develop teaching strategies that accommodate different types of learners. Others have criticized the theory for lacking empirical support and for being difficult to measure in practice. Now, despite the controversy, Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence has had a significant impact on education and has helped to broaden our understanding of intelligence. It has encouraged educators to recognize and nurture a wider range of cognitive abilities in their students, and it has opened up new avenues for research on human cognition and intelligence. So, that is another way of looking at intelligence. Then let's go back to the IQ. The IQ stands for intelligence quotient, and this is a numerical score that's derived from standardized tests that assess a person's cognitive abilities in various domains such as math and language and memory and spatial reasoning. And IQ tests have been widely used since their development in the early 20th century and are still commonly used today to measure an individual's cognitive abilities and potential. Now, as I've already mentioned, the concept of IQ was developed by the French psychologist Alfred Binet in the early 1900s, and Binet was at that time commissioned by the French government to develop tests that could identify children who were at risk of failing behind in school. Now, this test, known as the Binet-Simon scale, consisted of a series of tasks that measured various aspects of cognitive functioning, such as memory, attention, and problem-solving ability. And Binet's goal was to create a test that would identify children who needed extra support in school and allow educators to tailor education to their specific needs. And Binet's work was further developed in the United States by psychologist Louis Terman, who then revised the Binet-Simon scale and published it as the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale in 1916. And Terman expanded the age range of the test and standardized the scoring system, allowing for the comparison of scores across age groups. And the Stanford-Binet became the most widely used intelligence test in the United States and was used to assess individuals' cognitive abilities in a variety of settings, including schools, the military, and clinical psychology. And over the frame of the use of intelligence tests, the use of intelligence tests have expanded widely and have sometimes been used as a gatekeeper for getting into various programs. For example, the GRE, the Graduate Record Exam, or the MAT. Now, over the years, IQ tests have undergone many revisions and improvements. And one of the most well-known IQ tests is what is known as the Wechsler Intelligence Scale, which was developed in the 1930s by a psychologist by the name of David Wechsler. The Wechsler Intelligence Scale is still widely used today and has been updated several times in order to ensure its validity and its reliability across domains. The IQ tests are now used in a variety of settings, including schools and workplaces, and the military, police forces. And what they do is assess individuals' cognitive abilities and potential. And they're also used in clinical psychology to help diagnose intellectual disabilities and other cognitive disorders. However, IQ tests are not without their controversy, and some critics argue that they are culturally biased and may not accurately reflect individuals' true cognitive abilities. And in recent years, there's been a growing interest in alternate models of intelligence, such as Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which we've talked about, which suggests that there are different types of intelligence that cannot be accurately measured by a single test. But despite these criticisms and alternative theories, IQ tests really do remain one of the most widely used and recognized measures of cognitive ability in the world today. In addition to the IQ test, there are several other standardized measures of intelligence that are used. And I've already mentioned a few of these kinds of tests, but maybe it's good for me to kind of go back over them again. So one of the ways of measuring intelligence is the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale. And as I mentioned, this is a test that was developed in 1916 by Louis Terman at Stanford University. And like the original Binet-Simon test, it measures general cognitive abilities, including fluid reasoning, knowledge, quantitative reasoning, visual spatial processing, and working memory. The Stanford-Binet is still used today, and it is often used for assessing children and adults with intellectual disabilities. Then there is the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for children, the WISC, and the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, the WACE. And David Wechsler developed these tests in the 1940s and 50s. And like the Stanford-Binet, the WISC and the WACE measure general cognitive abilities, but they also include separate subtests for verbal comprehension, perceptual reasoning, working memory, and process speed. And these tests are testing these general abilities and can be applied to educational settings and clinical settings to understand the cognitive abilities and to diagnose sometimes learning disabilities or other developmental disorders. There's also something known as the Kaufman Assessment Battery for Children, the CAPS. And this test was developed by Alan Kaufman in the 1980s as a bit of an alternative to the WISC, the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children. And the CAP measures both fluid and crystallized intelligence and includes subtests for simultaneous processing, sequential processing, and learning ability. And it's often used to assess children with special needs, including those with things like ADHD or autism. There's also something known as the Differential Abilities Test. And this test was developed by Colin Elliott in the 1990s and measures general cognitive abilities, as well as several specific abilities, including visual spatial processing, auditory processing, and overall processing speed. And this differential ability scale is really something that's appropriate for children between the ages of 2 all the way up to the age of 17, and is often used in educational and clinical settings to diagnose learning disabilities and other developmental disorders. So overall, I hope that you see that these standardized measures of intelligence really do provide a way to assess cognitive abilities across a wide range of populations and settings. And so they're things that are widely used in education, in clinical psychology, as well as neuropsychology, and have been instrumental in advancing our understanding of human intelligence. So, that's a little bit about the overall idea of intelligence. So let's just kind of backtrack and review a little bit. Here's some examples of individuals who are known for excelling in one particular type of intelligence. So let's take a look at verbal linguistic intelligence. How about William Shakespeare, considered one of the greatest writers of the English language? He was renowned for his exceptional verbal linguistic intelligence. He was able to craft plays and sonnets with beautiful language and intricate wordplay. Let's think of logical mathematical intelligence. Well, of course, we need to go to Albert Einstein, often cited as an example of someone who possessed high levels of logical mathematical intelligence, and his groundbreaking theories of relativity and quantum mechanics revolutionized the field of physics. But if we're going to mention Albert Einstein, we might as well mention too, of course, his wife, Maria Malevich, who was actually better well recognized for her logical mathematical intelligence as they studied in Zurich. There's also spatial intelligence, and of course we need to think here of Leonardo da Vinci, who was the master of spatial intelligence, as demonstrated in his famous paintings, such as the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, as well as his drawings of machinery and anatomy. He was able to visualize complex three-dimensional shapes and perspectives in his mind and translate them onto paper. Then we have bodily kinesthetic intelligence, and here we can think of the GOAT, Michael Jordan, basketball. He was a great example of someone who excelled in bodily kinesthetic intelligence. His legendary basketball skills and ability to execute incredible moves on the court are a testament to his exceptional bodily control and coordination. Then we have musical intelligence. We've already mentioned Aretha Franklin, but farther back we can think of someone like Mozart, who is considered one of the greatest composers in history. And he's really a prime example of someone who possessed extraordinary musical intelligence. He was able to compose complex pieces of music from a very early age, and is widely regarded as a musical genius. We have someone like interpersonal intelligence. We don't need to look any farther than the famous Oprah Winfrey, who's a great example of someone who has high levels of interpersonal intelligence. He has an ability to connect with people on a personal level, to empathize with them, to inspire them to take action. And she's made herself one of the most influential personalities in media because of this interpersonal intelligence. Then we have someone like intrapersonal intelligence that would there's lots of people we could think of here. Sigmund Freud would be an example, but another one might be Mahatma Gandhi. someone who's often cited as an example of someone who possessed exceptional intrapersonal intelligence. He was able to deeply reflect and be self-aware with a clear sense of his own values and his own beliefs. And so he had an ability to stay true to his principles in the face of adversity and to inspire millions of people around the world to do the same. So as we close out today's lecture, I want you to reflect upon what are your particular brands of intelligence, and how can you use them to help people to make the world a better place to live? Because when you do that, I think, you truly are intelligent. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Have a good day. Goodbye.